Hey guys, this is Russ from CrafterCMS, and today we're going to get into the internals of Crafter Studio and talk about fundamental workflow states and how we store and represent those. This is not a topic for content authors. It's not a topic for the average system administrator or a plugin developer. This is only going to come up if you are doing deep back-end development or front-end development of some kind in Crafter Studio, or you're triaging an issue. So it's not something that you're going to have to deal with on a regular basis, but it is an interesting topic, and so I kind of want to go over it with you now. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about fundamental workflow states and how we represent them. So is a content item new? Is it modified? Is it deleted? Is it locked? Is it in system processing? And so on. We need to represent these in our backend database, and we need to represent them to our APIs and our UI and so on, and then make sure that you can interpret those. So we have libraries if you're doing plugin development and so on that you can easily get the states out, so you don't have to deal with the low level stuff, but now you'll understand what's behind the scenes. So let's take a look at our site here, and we can see we have a bunch of items and they have this green dot on them. So we can go back to our legend and we can see that they are in a live state. Now, item can be in multiple states at the same time. For example, if an item is live, it is also staged. So we usually combine those two states. You can also be staged and live and locked, for example. And there's other states that can be set at the same time. And these are combinatorial states. And so we need a way to represent that information and keep an item in all of these different states at the same time. And the way that we do that is by having a bit mask. And so we store integer values in the database, and then we take the binary representation of that, and each of those bits is one of these states, and we can turn that state on and off. So let's get practical about that so that we can see it in action. So what I'm going to do here is minimize this, and you can see here, if we open up the database, let's first get our site ID. So I'm going to select the site ID where or the ID where the site ID is workflow state, the site that we're looking at. And you can see I pulled up all the fields here, and the ID that I'm interested in is 49. And so now I can then go to the item table and pull all of the items back where the site is equal to 49. And specifically, I'm interested in path and state. So let's do that. And here we can see all of the content items for the site. And we can see at the top, this is the state column. So you'll have to trust me on that because there's a lot of items in here. And you can see as I'm scrolling through here, they're all 1,536. That's the integer representation of that state. Now, how do we know what flags are set? Well, let's jump to a map of the flags. Okay, so here you can see, and there's a back-end version of this and there's a front-end version of this. And there's a constants file in Studio UI project, and then UI, app, source, utils, constants. And there are helper functions if you're doing JavaScript development or Java development to use these values. You don't have to memorize this map at all, but now that you've seen this map, you know what state things are in, and you know how the states are derived. So you can see here that, for example, if the item is new and never been published or anything, the first flag, which is the one place, is set high. After the item is published, it's no longer new. That flag will be 0 forever. And in our case, we were looking at items that were all published. So that means to live, and that means that live flag will be set, which in this case says that the flag in this place is set. Okay, and then I also mentioned that when something is live, it's also staged. Now, let's sort of work through this example. So let's say we go to the database and we see an item that we're interested in is set to a certain state. So how do we look up the state of a specific item? I'm going to pull up where the site is 49 and the path is equal to entertainment, for example. So you can see this, we're going to pull up this entertainment page, and we expect that the state will be 1536. Okay, now one way to just get the bits for 1536 is just to go to a, whoops, I didn't want to jump out of that project there. Let's just rerun that query. One way to get the, I'm sorry, I'm trying to copy this, and so I'm just going to have to highlight it and copy. And one way to get the fields for this is to convert binary to decimal. So for example, if I put in 1536 and hit convert, what it's going to do is it's going to say that these are the two flags that are set high. So if I didn't know what this state meant, I can run a conversion like this and see what bits are set, and then I can go to our map and check those bits, and that will tell me what state the item is in, basically concretely. So this is, in a sense, a little bit more specific than saying, oh, well, I see that this green dot is set, and therefore the item is live. Well, in fact, because these two bits are set, I can tell that not only is the item live, but it's also staged. Now, let's look at the state again. If we open the item and we say edit, then what we're going to see is that the item will lock. Okay. Now, if we go back to the database and we make the same query, we see that the state has changed, okay, to 1544. So let's go ahead and take 1544. This time I'll use the mouse to copy, and we'll go to our binary to decimal, our decimal to binary converter, paste in 1544, convert that, and now we can see that this other flag is set. Okay, so what flag is that? Well, it's, it's the ones place is a 0, 2s, 4s, 8s. The 8th bit is set. Now I want to know, what does that flag mean? So I'm going to go back to the map here, and I'm going to look. So I see the item is, there's the one place is 0, 2s, 4s. There's the 8th place. Go all the way across, and I can see that the item is locked. Okay. Similarly, if I want to know, if I want to put the item in a state, let's say I want to put the item in system processing, then I can look up the bit that is for that flag. So let's go the other way. Let's go back to Studio, and let's say that I want to put entertainment, instead of in the live state, I want to put it in the system processing state. Well, or I want to put it in system processing additionally to the live state. So in that case, what I can do is I can go to our conversion, and I think it was 1535. Let's confirm that. So sorry, 1536. It's a good thing I checked. Let's put that in here, and we'll paste this and convert it. So that tells us that this is the state for live and staged. Now I want to take this state, and I'm going to go the other way. So I'm going to go to decimal, the binary to decimal converter. Let's put that in here. Let's run it, and we'll see that, yep, that equals 1536. And now I'm going to set the 8th place bit. So I'm going to leave the ones place alone, 2, 4, 8. This is the 8th place. I'm going to set that to 1, and I'm going to ask, what is that number? Well, it's 1544. Now that's locked. So let's go back to our chart. I want to put it in system processing, I said. So system processing is one place over from that. You see, it's easy to see here because they all go off to the left. So let's go back to our converter. Let's set the 8th place to 0. And we'll set the 16th place to 1. And we'll convert that, and that's 1552. So we'll go into our database, and we're going to say update item where item set state equal to, and our state was, I think, 1552. Let me just confirm that. 1552, where our site ID is equal to 49, and our path is equal to, and I'm going to be lazy here, I'm just going to copy the one up above, which I could have done in the first place. Let's just do that. And we're going to paste that in there and put our semicolon on the end here. Okay, and now let's select the state again for our item. So we see it's 1552, and if we go back to the UI of Studio, and let's go ahead and refresh this, we see now that this item is in system processing. Okay, I see that that is system processing, which again, you can see a couple different ways. You can look here on the dashboard at that legend, or you can just sort of hover over here and it'll tell you what it is. You can go here and you'll see, again, another way to see that in the options menu. Now, before we go, I mentioned that if you're a developer working with our SDK, then we have some helpers that can, abstract some of this stuff so that you don't need to know about all these low-level fundamentals. And even if you're doing some triage, I'm going to show you something here that can make it so that you don't have to jump into the database and look at all of these bits and bit masks and so on. So let's jump in here to our inspection tools in the browser, and we're going to go to console, and I'm going to pull up a set of invocations that will ultimately pull up an item. Okay, so this first section here, this actually just pulls up an item, and then I'm specifically indexing into sitemap. Well, let's actually back that off a little bit. Let's pull up the entertainment item. And you can see here, this is a sandbox item. And one of the fields inside of the sandbox item is the state value. So this gives you the state value, an easy way to look that up, 1552, which we just saw in the database. And you can see the state map. So this gives you a true-false representation of the bit values that we have in the database. Instead of looking at ones and zeros in a linear fashion, you can see the exact field and whether it's high or low. So this is a much easier tool than looking at the database. And you can see when you're coding that you can specifically just look at this state map and get the values without having to know the underlying representation. And it's absolutely the best practice from a coding perspective that you do that and let our system convert that for you. But now you know the underlying fundamentals behind the system and these SDKs. And also what this value means when you see state 1552. Now, also, if you are an administrator, you have access to a tool that we call workflow states. So here you can see all the states in the system, and I can go here and I can filter for paths. I can also filter for states. So for example, I happen to know that this entertainment item is in system processing, so I can pull that up. And now I can use the tool to set states. And so here you can see I can easily clear the system processing state. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And you can see that it is left the window here. It's no longer in that state. I also see in the background here that it still shows in system processing. Now I'm going to go ahead and accept this, and we're going to open up the inspection tools again and go to console. And you can see here again, maybe I'll make sure to let you know here that this is top, so we're actually looking at Studio and not, like, say, preview window or something else. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run that method again. And here, let's pull out, you see it still says 1552. And I'm specifically showing you that because in this specific case, we don't have a round trip from the server back that has updated that state. So I'm going to hit refresh. And now we're going to rerun this query. And let's open that up. And we're going to go to, you can see that's 1536, which we know from earlier that that's the live state. And now let's go ahead and open up the two state maps. So one from the previous invocation. Here you can see system processing. In the last call is false. And if we scroll up and open up this state map from the first invocation, then here we see 1552 and the state map there showing system processing is true. All right. So when you use this method, and the reason why I'm showing you is you want to make sure that you, maybe you run a refresh. You make sure that the React application in its state management has the latest version of that item. So you can easily get that by just making sure that you do a refresh there and get that latest state from the server, and that'll make sure you're always looking at the latest state when you use this mechanism. And this is how a state works in the system, and a little bit of an insight into the back end and how you can navigate those states if you're ever doing any kind of triage or research or, again, some low-level development. Thanks, and happy crafting.